Grace Carter fulfilled the dream of marrying billionaire Aiden James Sinclair, but she never imagined what was coming. Grace fulfilled the dream of marrying a billionaire, but will their life be as perfect as the fairy tale she imagined? Before we continue, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching the video from. And don't forget to subscribe. Grace stood in her sun-drenched office, the light streaming through the large windows casting a warm glow over the stacks of blueprints scattered around her desk. She was a talented architect, known for her innovative designs that blended functionality with breathtaking aesthetics. Today, however, her heart raced not from the thrill of creating a new structure, but from the anticipation of her upcoming wedding to Aiden. She could hardly believe that in just a few days, she would be walking down the aisle to marry one of the most charismatic men she had ever met, a billionaire whose wealth was rivaled only by his charm. With a pencil poised in her hand, Grace's mind wandered as she sketched the outline of a futuristic building, its soaring lines and curves symbolizing the dreams she had nurtured since her childhood. But now, those dreams paled in comparison to the vision of her life with Aiden. She let out a soft sigh, her thoughts drifting to the lavish ceremony they had meticulously planned. The venue, a grand estate overlooking the city, was already adorned with flowers and lights that twinkled like stars in the evening sky. As she drew, Grace couldn't help but smile at the memory of Aiden's proposal. They had been on a romantic getaway to the coast when he surprised her with a ring that sparkled as brilliantly as the ocean waves. "You're my dream come true, Grace," he had said, his eyes shining with sincerity. The words echoed in her mind, filling her with warmth. Just then, her phone buzzed, breaking her reverie. It was a message from Aiden. "Can't wait to see you in that dress. Love you," it read, accompanied by a heart emoji. Her stomach fluttered with excitement. They had both agreed that their wedding would be a celebration of their love, a moment to share with their closest friends and family. But beneath the excitement lay a tinge of apprehension. Aiden's family was known for their high expectations, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into a world where she would always be scrutinized. "Grace, are you ready for the big day?" Her assistant, Mia, peered into the office, her voice cheerful. "I can't believe you're getting married this weekend. It's like a fairy tale." Grace chuckled softly, trying to mask her nerves. "I am, but I feel like there's so much to do still. I just want everything to be perfect." Mia stepped into the room, her bright eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "It will be. You and Aiden deserve it. Besides, it's just one day. You'll have the rest of your life to create your own kind of perfect." As they chatted about last-minute details, Grace's mind flickered back to Aiden. He was everything she had ever wanted: intelligent, kind, and deeply passionate about his work. Yet, there was a shadow that occasionally passed over him, a hint of something more complex lurking beneath his charismatic exterior. She had noticed it during their whirlwind romance, but she had brushed it aside, believing that love could conquer all. Now, as their wedding day approached, she couldn't help but wonder if she had truly understood the man she was about to marry. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear, the sun shining down on the venue, which was a breathtakingly beautiful estate surrounded by lush gardens. Grace stood in front of the grand mirror in the bridal suite, her heart pounding as she slipped into her wedding gown. The delicate lace hugged her figure perfectly, and she felt like a princess. The gown flowed elegantly to the floor, a stunning contrast against her dark hair, which was pinned up in soft curls. "Grace, you look absolutely stunning," Mia exclaimed as she adjusted the veil cascading down from her hair. "Aiden is going to be speechless." "Thank you, Mia." Grace smiled, her excitement mingling with the weight of expectation pressing down on her chest. "I just hope I can live up to everything he and his family envision." As she descended the grand staircase, Grace felt the weight of the moment envelop her. The guests, a dazzling array of society's elite, turned to witness her entrance, their expressions a mix of awe and envy. Music filled the air, a soft melody that seemed to echo her racing heart. She caught sight of Aiden standing at the altar, his handsome face illuminated by a radiant smile. In that instant, all her doubts faded away. It was just him, just them. With each step closer to Aiden, Grace felt a rush of emotions: joy, love, and a twinge of anxiety. What if she didn't meet the expectations his family had set? What if she stumbled during the vows? But then she looked into Aiden's eyes, and everything else faded away. He reached for her hand, his touch grounding her in that moment. "You're breathtaking," he whispered, his voice low and filled with awe. As the ceremony unfolded, Grace felt enveloped in a cocoon of happiness. They exchanged vows, promising to love and support each other through thick and thin. The words seemed to resonate deeply within her, a vow that transcended the lavish setting and the curious gazes of the onlookers. This was about their love, their commitment, and nothing else mattered. After the vows, they turned to face their guests, and Aiden pulled her close. Their lips met in a passionate kiss, a moment that felt infinite. But just as the cheers erupted, the joyous atmosphere shattered when Aiden suddenly staggered back, his eyes wide with panic. He gasped, clutching his chest, and then he crumpled to the ground, the sound of his body hitting the floor reverberating through the stunned crowd. "Someone call for help," Grace shrieked, her heart racing as she rushed to Aiden's side. Panic surged within her as she knelt beside him, cradling his head in her lap. "Aiden, please wake up." The world around her blurred, her focus narrowing to the man she loved, now lying motionless on the ground. His family rushed to their side, confusion and fear etched on their faces. Whispers filled the air, questions about what had just happened. But all Grace could do was hold Aiden close, her heart pounding in her chest. As the paramedics arrived, Grace's mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. What had just happened? Was this a reflection of the man she had married? Aiden had always seemed so composed, so in control. She thought of the future they had envisioned together, now hanging by a thread. Her heart sank as uncertainty loomed over them, and she realized the whirlwind of emotions she would have to navigate, both for herself and for Aiden. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the paramedics worked to stabilize him. Grace's heart ached as she felt the weight of their stares, some filled with sympathy, others with judgment. She was thrust into a reality far removed from the fairy tale wedding she had dreamed of, one that would test the very foundation of their love. Grace sat in the sterile hospital room, the beeping of machines punctuating the tense silence. The stark white walls felt oppressive, and the smell of antiseptics hung heavy in the air. The morning light filtered through the blinds, casting slanted shadows across Aiden's pale face. He lay unconscious, the remnants of his charm and charisma replaced by an unsettling stillness. She reached out to hold his hand, her fingers intertwining with his, feeling the warmth that still lingered, though it seemed so far removed from the vibrant man she had married just days ago. An overwhelming wave of emotions washed over her. Fear, confusion, and a gnawing sense of betrayal. How could she not have known? The thought echoed relentlessly in her mind. A gentle knock at the door broke her reverie. Dr. Simmons, a kind-faced psychiatrist, entered the room, his expression serious but not unkind. Grace straightened in her chair, her heart racing. She had requested to speak with him, desperate for answers. "Mrs. Sinclair," he began, glancing at Aiden before settling his gaze on her. "I want to assure you that we're doing everything we can. Aiden is stable now, but he's experiencing a severe panic attack, possibly stemming from underlying issues we need to address." "Underlying issues?" Grace echoed, her throat tightening. "What do you mean? He never mentioned anything like this to me. I thought he was just stressed." Dr. Simmons sighed, the weight of his knowledge heavy in the air. "Aiden has been battling anxiety and depression for years. It's possible he felt he had to hide it, especially with the pressures of his position. Sometimes, the facade becomes too much to maintain." Grace's breath caught in her throat. "But why didn't he tell me? We were supposed to be partners. I would have supported him." "I can't speak to his reasons, but it's not uncommon for people to feel ashamed or fearful of being a burden. He may have believed that revealing his struggles would change how you see him or even affect your relationship." "Change how I see him?" Her voice cracked, a mix of disbelief and hurt. "I love him. I would never judge him for this. Love can be complicated, Mrs. Sinclair. Many people fear that their vulnerabilities will push loved ones away." Dr. Simmons replied gently. "What's important now is to focus on Aiden's recovery. He will need support. and it's crucial that you are aware of his condition moving forward." Grace nodded, her mind racing. She had so many questions, but one thing was clear. She needed to be there for Aiden, to help him face the demons he had kept hidden for so long. "What can I do?" she asked, determination flooding her voice. "How can I help him?" "Patience will be key. Allow him to open up when he's ready. In the meantime, consider speaking with a therapist yourself. This situation is a lot to process, and having guidance can be beneficial for both of you." As the doctor finished his explanation, Grace felt a swell of resolve. Aiden had built an empire, and she would not let it crumble while he fought to reclaim his life. She would stand by him, even if it meant navigating the storm that was sure to come. The next few days were a blur of hospital visits and media frenzy. Grace found herself bombarded by headlines that twisted Aiden's breakdown into sensational gossip, painting her as an unfit wife who had driven him to the edge. Each article felt like a dagger, intensifying the weight of public scrutiny. She could almost hear the whispers in the hallways of the hospital, the judgmental glances from strangers who only knew the surface of their lives. In the midst of it all, Aiden's family began to circle like vultures. They arrived at the hospital, a collection of sharp suits and cold expressions that sent a chill down Grace's spine. His mother, with her perfectly coiffed hair and icy demeanor, was the first to approach her. "Grace," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "I assume you're taking care of things here?" Grace clenched her jaw, the implications of her words not lost on her. "I'm here for Aiden. He needs me." "Does he?" Aiden's father interjected, a frown etched on his features. "I hope you're not trying to blame this on us. This is a family matter, and we will handle it." Grace felt her heart race, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "Aiden is my husband, and I will not let you dismiss his struggles. He needs our support, not your judgment." "Support?" Aiden's mother scoffed. "You're the one who should be held accountable. If he has a breakdown, it's likely because of the pressure of marrying you. You've brought nothing but chaos into his life." Tears pricked at Grace's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "I love Aiden. I would never intentionally hurt him. You don't know what he's been through, and neither do you," his father snapped, his voice low and threatening. "You're playing a dangerous game, Grace. You may think you're helping, but you could end up being the one who breaks him." With that, they turned away, leaving Grace standing alone in the hallway, her heart racing and her mind whirling. She felt isolated, the burden of Aiden's mental health pressing down on her like a heavy shroud. The pressure from the media and Aiden's family felt insurmountable, but she knew she couldn't let them win. Determined to prove herself, Grace made her way to Aiden's office the next day, a sleek glass building that towered over the city like a monument to his ambition. The moment she stepped inside, the familiar buzz of the corporate world surrounded her, but it felt different now, intimidating and unwelcoming. She found Aiden's business partners gathered in a conference room, their faces etched with concern and skepticism. The atmosphere was thick with tension as they turned to her, their expressions revealing their doubts about her ability to lead in Aiden's absence. Mrs. Sinclair, one of the partners, a balding man named Gregory, began, his tone condescending. "We appreciate your concern for Aiden, but this is a complex situation. We need to discuss how to move forward without him." Grace squared her shoulders, refusing to be intimidated. "I understand that, but I believe Aiden's vision for this company can continue. I want to help. I want to keep his projects alive while he recovers." "We're not sure that's advisable," another partner chimed in, crossing his arms. "You're not familiar with the intricacies of our operations. This isn't just about keeping the lights on. It's about maintaining our reputation. And what do you think will happen if you all abandon Aiden in his time of need?" Grace shot back, her voice steady. "He built this empire through hard work and innovation. You all owe him more loyalty than you're showing. If you want to preserve what he's created, you need to support him now. I know Aiden, and I know what he envisioned for this company. I'm here to make sure that vision doesn't die." The partners exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Grace pressed on, her heart racing as she laid out her ideas. "We can introduce new initiatives that focus on mental health, employee well-being, and community outreach. This is a chance to redefine our brand, to show that we care about more than just profits. If we do this right, we can not only honor Aiden's legacy, but also strengthen the company in the long run. As she spoke, she sensed a shift in the room. Some of the partners leaned in, intrigued by the passion in her voice. Others still wore skeptical expressions, but Grace didn't let it deter her. She had to fight for Aiden, for their future, and for the empire he had built. When she finished her presentation, silence enveloped the room. It felt as if the air itself had thickened, weighed down by the gravity of the moment. Finally, Gregory spoke, his voice softer than before. "Your commitment is admirable, Grace. We recognize your passion for Aiden and this company. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach and discuss how we can work together." Grace exhaled, relief flooding through her. She had taken the first step, and while it was only a small victory, it felt monumental in the face of everything that had happened. She had proven to herself, and to them, that she was not just Aiden's wife but a capable partner in every sense. The road ahead would be challenging, but she was ready to face it head-on, armed with love, determination, and a fierce loyalty that would not waver. Grace took a deep breath as she walked through the glass doors of the towering corporate building that housed Aiden's company. The air inside was thick with the tension of doubt and skepticism. Voices echoed in the polished hallways, punctuated by the click of heels on marble floors. Today was the day she would face the board of directors, a group of seasoned executives who had known Aiden longer than she had, who had seen him at his most brilliant, and now at his most fragile. As she approached the conference room, Grace could feel the weight of their stares. The media frenzy had painted her as a gold digger, a woman who had married into wealth and power only to crumble under the pressure. She could almost hear the whispers trailing behind her. What does she know about business? Can she really lead? The doubts gnawed at her insides, but she squared her shoulders and pushed the door open. Inside, the boardroom was sleek and intimidating. A long, glossy table stretched before her, surrounded by stern faces that regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. Grace took a moment to gather her thoughts, her mind racing with the innovative ideas she had spent the night crafting. She had to prove herself, not just to them but to herself. "Good morning, everyone," Grace said, her voice steady despite the rapid beating of her heart. "Thank you for allowing me to present today." She glanced at the empty chair at the head of the table, a stark reminder of Aiden's absence. "As you know, Aiden is currently recovering, and I believe it's crucial for us to keep the company on a forward trajectory during this time." The room remained silent, the air thick with skepticism. Finally, a man in a tailored suit, Richard, the CFO, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "What exactly makes you think you can handle this? You're an architect, not a businesswoman." Grace felt a flush of heat creep up her neck, but refused to be intimidated. "I understand your concerns, Richard, but I've been closely involved with Aiden's vision for the company, and I have some ideas that I believe can help us navigate this challenging period." She clicked the remote in her hand, and a sleek presentation lit up the screen behind her. "First, I propose we increase our focus on mental health initiatives within the company. Aiden's struggles have shed light on the importance of mental wellness, and I believe we can not only support our employees but also position ourselves as leaders in this critical area." There were murmurs among the board members, some nodding while others exchanged skeptical glances. Grace pressed on, eager to capture their attention. "Imagine a workplace where employees feel valued and supported. We could implement workshops, mental health days, and partnerships with local mental health organizations. This not only enhances employee satisfaction, but can also improve our overall productivity." Richard raised an eyebrow. "And how exactly do you plan to fund this?" "I've done the research," she replied, her confidence growing. "By reallocating a portion of our marketing budget and seeking partnerships with wellness organizations, we can create a robust program without additional financial strain." As she spoke, she noticed a few board members leaning forward, intrigued. Encouraged, Grace continued, detailing how these changes could enhance the company's image and attract top talent. She could feel the tide shifting slightly, the skepticism ebbing as she laid out her vision. "Your proposal is interesting," said Claire, the head of marketing, as she flipped through the slides. "But how do you plan to get the employees to buy into this?" Many companies have tried similar programs and failed. Grace smiled, ready for this question. That's where my background comes in. As an architect, I've always believed in creating spaces that foster connection and collaboration. We can design our initiatives to be engaging, perhaps even gamifying the process to encourage participation. Employees respond to creativity and playfulness. The conversation flowed, and for the first time, Grace felt a sense of camaraderie in the room. Ideas bounced back and forth, and she found herself challenged but invigorated. She had always loved the collaborative process of architecture, and now she was experiencing it in a different context. After what felt like hours, Grace concluded her presentation. In conclusion, I believe that by embracing mental health as a priority, we can not only support our employees but also strengthen our brand and ultimately our bottom line. There was a moment of silence before Richard spoke again, this time with a hint of respect in his voice. You've given us a lot to think about, Grace. I appreciate your passion and your willingness to take the lead during this difficult time. As she left the boardroom, Grace felt a rush of exhilaration. She had faced the skeptics and held her ground, but her victory was short-lived. As she stepped into the hallway, she was confronted by Lily, Aiden's younger sister, who stood waiting for her with arms crossed and a scowl on her face. "Grace," Lily said, her voice dripping with disdain. "You think you can just waltz in here and take over? You're nothing but a gold digger." Grace's heart sank at the accusation, but she refused to let it show. "Lily, this isn't about money. It's about Aiden and the company he built. I'm trying to help him." "Help him? Or help yourself?" Lily shot back, her eyes blazing. "You think you can just ride on his coattails and pretend to be something you're not? You don't belong here." The hurtful words stung, but Grace stood firm. "I love Aiden, and I'm committed to standing by him through this. I'm not here for the money or the status. I want to prove that I can be a partner to him, not just in marriage, but in every aspect of his life." Lily's expression softened for a brief moment, but it quickly hardened again. "You might think you understand him, but you don't. You don't know the pressure he's under, and you certainly don't know what it's like to be part of this family." Grace took a deep breath, holding back the tears that threatened to spill. "I want to understand. I want to be part of this family, but I can't do that if you keep pushing me away. I'm here for Aiden, and I will prove my loyalty to him." "Prove it, then," Lily snapped, turning on her heel and striding away. Grace watched her go, a mix of frustration and sadness churning inside her. Each day, Grace visited Aiden in the hospital, her heart aching for the man she loved. She would sit by his bedside, holding his hand, and share her dreams for their future. "Aiden," she whispered softly, "I believe in us. When you come back, we'll make this company better than it ever was. We'll change the world together." She painted pictures with her words, describing new designs, innovative projects, and the mental health initiatives she wanted to implement. "Just imagine, we could create spaces in the city that not only inspire but also heal. We could have parks, community centers, and buildings that promote wellness. You'd love it." As she spoke, she watched for signs of life in his expression. Sometimes he would squeeze her hand, and she would cling to that small gesture, her heart fluttering with hope. Other times, he lay still, lost in his own world, and Grace would feel a pang of loneliness. "I miss you, Aiden," she would say, her voice cracking. "I miss your laughter, your passion. I'm fighting for you. Just come back to me." Days turned into weeks, and while Aiden slowly made progress, Grace felt increasingly isolated. The media continued to scrutinize her every move, and the boardroom battles left her drained. Yet, through it all, her love for Aiden remained a guiding light, pushing her to keep fighting, to keep dreaming of a future where they would stand together, stronger than ever. Aiden sat on the edge of his hospital bed, his fingers nervously tracing the patterns of the quilt that covered him. The sterile smell of antiseptic hung in the air, mingling with the faint scent of flowers from the bouquet Grace had brought. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting warm rays on his pale skin, yet the warmth did little to dispel the chill of his memories. He had been making progress, but the shadows of his past still clung to him, whispering doubts and fears into his mind. Grace stood across from him, her heart aching at the sight of her husband's struggle. She had always known Aiden as the charming billionaire, a man who could light up any room with his smile. But now, she witnessed the darkness that threatened to engulf him. The severity of his breakdown had shaken her to the core, leaving her to grapple with the truth that he had hidden for so long. Taking a deep breath, she stepped closer, her voice soft yet firm. "Aiden, you don't have to carry this alone," she said, her eyes searching his. "Whatever it is that haunts you, I'm here. I want to understand." He looked up, vulnerability etched across his features. "It's just, I never wanted to burden you with my past. My childhood wasn't easy. I've kept it locked away for so long, but it feels like it's all crashing down now." Grace's heart raced as she took a seat beside him. "Please, tell me. I promise I won't judge you." Aiden hesitated, the weight of his memories pressing heavily on him. "I grew up in a household where love was conditional. My parents believed in success at any cost. I was never good enough for them. Not smart enough, not talented enough. I remember nights spent studying while my father shouted at me from the other room. I thought if I could just be perfect, they would love me." Grace reached out, placing a comforting hand on his arm. "You were never defined by their expectations. You're so much more than that, Aiden." He swallowed hard, tears forming in his eyes. "I thought once I became successful, I would finally feel worthy. But instead, the pressure only grew. I've been living in fear. Fear of failure, fear of disappointing everyone around me. And after the wedding, after I collapsed, it all came crashing down. I realized I couldn't keep pretending." Grace's heart ached for him. "You don't have to pretend with me. I love you for who you are, not for what you've achieved. We can face this together." As Aiden leaned into her embrace, he felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. It wasn't an easy journey ahead, but having Grace by his side made the darkness seem a little less daunting. Days passed, and Aiden continued his recovery, with Grace staying by his side, absorbing every moment of their time together. Inspired by their conversations, she decided it was time to bring about change in Aiden's company, starting with mental health initiatives aimed at supporting employees. It was a step she believed would not only help Aiden, but also foster a healthier work environment for everyone. One afternoon, Grace gathered her courage and called a meeting with Aiden's business partners. The luxurious boardroom, with its sleek design and expansive view of the city below, felt imposing as she entered. The partners were a mix of seasoned professionals and skeptical newcomers, and she could feel the weight of their gazes as she took her seat at the head of the table. "Thank you all for joining me today," Grace began, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in her stomach. "I know this is an unusual meeting, but I believe it's crucial that we address the state of our company, especially in light of recent events." The room fell silent, and she could sense the skepticism radiating from some of the partners. A grizzled man at the end of the table, known for his ruthless approach to business, crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow. "And what would you know about running this company, Grace? You're not exactly a seasoned executive." She felt a surge of determination. "I may not have the same experience as all of you, but I understand the importance of mental health in the workplace. Aiden's breakdown has highlighted the need for change, and I'm proposing we implement programs that prioritize employee well-being. It's not just about profits. It's about creating a supportive environment." A murmur rippled through the room, and Grace pressed on, her passion igniting her confidence. "Imagine a workplace where employees feel safe speaking about their struggles, where they have access to counseling and support groups. It's not just good ethics, it's good business. Happier employees lead to higher productivity and loyalty." The grizzled man scoffed. "And how do you plan to fund these initiatives? We're dealing with a financial crisis here." Grace took a deep breath, prepared for this question. "By investing in our people, we'll ultimately save money in the long run. Reduced turnover, lower healthcare costs, and increased morale will have a positive impact on our bottom line. I've done the research, and I'm confident that this is the right path forward." In that moment, she saw a flicker of interest in the eyes of a younger partner, one who had been quiet until now. "She's right," he said, leaning forward. "We can't ignore the elephant in the room. If we want to attract top talent and retain our employees, we need to evolve. Mental health awareness is becoming a priority in the corporate world. Grace sees the opportunity. Exactly. Let's be pioneers in this field. We can lead the industry by showing that we care about our employees' well-being. It's time for a shift in our culture. As the discussion continued, Grace felt the tide slowly turning in her favor. She could see the skepticism beginning to fade, replaced by curiosity and, in some cases, reluctant agreement. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental for her and for Aiden. However, as she returned home that evening, the weight of the world felt heavier than ever. The media was relentless, scrutinizing every move she made as Aiden's wife. Headlines questioned her motives, painting her as a gold digger seeking to capitalize on her husband's wealth and fame. She scrolled through social media, each comment cutting deeper than the last. Grace is just in it for the money. Why is she trying to change things? She doesn't belong in that world. Aiden was better off before he married her. The words echoed in her mind, but she refused to let them define her. She had a mission, and she would see it through. Aiden needed her now more than ever, and she was determined to protect him and the legacy he had built. Days turned into weeks, and as Grace worked diligently to implement her proposed initiatives, she stumbled upon something unexpected. While reviewing company documents, she discovered an illicit deal that Aiden's family was involved in, an underhanded agreement that jeopardized the company's integrity and could potentially lead to a scandal. Her heart raced as she pieced together the implications. This wasn't just a simple oversight. It was a betrayal that could ruin everything Aiden had worked for. She felt a surge of determination, realizing she had to confront Aiden's family to protect him and their future. That evening, she called a meeting with Aiden's family, her heart pounding as she prepared to face them. They had already shown their skepticism toward her, and she knew this confrontation would not be easy. But she was resolute. As she entered the room, Aiden's mother, a woman with an air of authority and a sharp gaze, sat at the head of the table. The tension in the room was palpable. "Grace," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "what brings you here? Surely you understand your place in this family." Grace took a deep breath, steeling herself. "I've come to discuss something serious. I discovered an illegal deal regarding the company's assets, and I believe it's crucial we address it before it escalates further." Aiden's sister, Lily, rolled her eyes, crossing her arms defiantly. "What do you know about our business? You're just a pretty face who married into the family." Grace's heart raced, but she stood her ground. "I may not be a seasoned executive, but I care about this company and Aiden. If this deal goes public, it will tarnish everything he has built." The room fell silent as the gravity of her words sank in. Aiden's mother leaned forward, her expression shifting. "What evidence do you have?" "I've reviewed the documents, and I'm willing to share my findings. But I need your support in addressing this issue transparently. We can't let greed destroy what Aiden has worked so hard to achieve." As she spoke, Grace felt an overwhelming sense of purpose. She was no longer just Aiden's wife. She was a protector of his legacy, ready to confront the darkness that threatened to consume them both. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the polished boardroom table, where Grace stood at the head, her heart racing. She had gathered all the evidence she could find regarding the illicit dealings that Aiden's family had orchestrated, and she was ready to confront them. The air was thick with tension as the family members took their seats, their faces a mix of skepticism and disdain. "Grace, this is highly irregular." Jonathan, Aiden's uncle, began, his voice dripping with condescension. He adjusted his cufflinks, a smug smile creeping across his face. "You really think you can just waltz in here and demand accountability from us?" Grace swallowed hard but held her ground, her resolve steeled by the weight of the truth she carried. "I'm not here to demand anything. I'm here to show you what you've been hiding from Aiden and the company. This isn't just business. This is about integrity and about protecting Aiden." The room fell silent, the only sound being the faint rustle of papers as Grace laid out her findings on the table. Each document detailed the corrupt transactions, the falsified reports, and the implications that could destroy everything Aiden had built. As she spoke, her voice grew stronger, fueled by the knowledge that she was not just fighting for Aiden, but for the values he had instilled in her during their time together. "You think this is a game, don't you?" Lily, Aiden's younger sister, shot back, her voice thick with bitterness. "You're just a girl who married into the family. You have no idea how things work here." Grace met her gaze, unflinching. "I may be new to this world, but I know right from wrong. And what you're doing is wrong, Lily. It's unethical, and it's going to hurt Aiden if you don't stop." "Enough," Jonathan barked, slamming his hand on the table, causing the documents to flutter. "You're out of your depth, Grace. You think you can take us down? You're just proving how naive you are." Grace felt the sting of their words, but she refused to back down. "I'm not trying to take anyone down. I'm trying to save Aiden's legacy. You can dismiss me all you want, but I have the evidence. This will get out, whether you like it or not." The tension in the room was palpable as Grace stood resolute, her pulse quickening. The family's dismissive attitudes began to shift slightly. Uncertainty flickered in their eyes. "Aiden deserves better than this," she added, her voice softer now, almost pleading. "He deserves a family that supports him, not one that pushes him to the brink." Jonathan leaned back, crossing his arms, his contemptuous gaze never leaving her. "And you think you're the one to save him? You're the reason he's in that hospital. Your marriage was a mistake." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, and Grace felt the weight of them settle on her shoulders. But instead of crumpling under the pressure, she found a flicker of determination. "No, I'm the reason he's going to get better. I'm the one standing by his side while you all hide in the shadows." With that, Grace turned on her heel and walked out of the room, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew the fight was far from over, but she also knew that she had taken the first step toward exposing the truth. As dusk fell, Grace returned to her office, the city skyline twinkling in the distance. She felt invigorated, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. She needed to act quickly. With a deep breath, she called a meeting with a few of Aiden's most trusted employees, those who had stood by him through thick and thin. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Grace said as they gathered in the small conference room. She could see the concern in their eyes, and it mirrored her own. "I need your help. We have to get this information out to the press." There was a murmur of disbelief. "But Grace, what about the repercussions?" One of the employees, Ben, asked, his brow furrowed with worry. "This could blow back on Aiden, not to mention on you." "I know the risks," Grace replied, her voice steady. "But if we don't act now, Aiden's family will continue to run this company into the ground. They won't stop until they've destroyed everything he's worked for." "But how can we trust that the media will handle this responsibly?" Another employee chimed in, skepticism lacing her tone. Grace leaned forward, her intensity palpable. "Because we're not just giving them a story. We're giving them the truth. We can frame this as a chance for reform, to bring light to the corruption that has been festering within this company. This is our opportunity to support Aiden, to show him, and the world, that we believe in the values he holds dear." The room grew quiet as they considered her words. Finally, Ben nodded slowly. "Okay, I'm in. Let's do this." One by one, the others joined in, their determination rekindled by Grace's passion. Together, they formulated a plan to leak the information strategically, to ensure that the scandal would come to light without directly implicating Aiden. The following days were a whirlwind. Grace and her team worked tirelessly, preparing statements and gathering additional evidence to support their claims. They crafted a narrative that not only highlighted the corruption, but also emphasized Aiden's commitment to integrity and ethical leadership. Finally, the day came when they released the information to key journalists. As the story broke, it sent shockwaves through the business community. Headlines blared about the corruption within Aiden's family, and the public quickly rallied behind Grace, recognizing her as a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. In the hospital, Aiden began to recover, though he was still grappling with the weight of his family's actions. He watched the news coverage from his hospital room, his heart heavy with a mix of gratitude and guilt. When Grace entered later that evening, he looked up at her, his eyes reflecting the turmoil within him. "You shouldn't have done this, Grace," he said, his voice hoarse. "I never wanted you to get hurt because of me." Sitting beside him, Grace took his hand, squeezing it gently. But I had to. You were suffering, Aiden, and I couldn't stand by and watch your family destroy everything you've built. You deserve to be free from that burden. He looked away, the shame evident on his face. I feel like I've put you in danger. This is all my fault. No, she countered softly, her heart aching for him. This is their fault. You're not responsible for their actions, Aiden. You're a good man, and you're fighting to get better. That's what matters. Aiden met her gaze, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Thank you, Grace, for believing in me, even when I couldn't believe in myself. She smiled, her heart swelling with love for him. I'll always believe in you. We'll get through this together. As the weight of their circumstances hung heavy in the air, Grace felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she was ready to face them head-on. Together, they would navigate this storm, turning their tragedy into a legacy of hope and courage. In the wake of the scandal that had rocked Aiden's family, the atmosphere at the office was charged with a mixture of apprehension and cautious optimism. Grace had become a beacon of hope, her resilience shining through as she navigated the aftermath of the revelations. The media had shifted its focus from the sensationalism of Aiden's breakdown to the inspiring story of a woman who had risen to the occasion, determined to protect the legacy of the man she loved. Inside the sleek, glass-walled conference room, Grace stood at the head of the table, her heart pounding as she prepared to present her vision for the future of Aiden's company. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice steady despite the weight of expectation. What we have gone through over the past few months has been challenging, to say the least. But it has also revealed the cracks in our foundation that we can no longer ignore. The room was filled with Aiden's business partners, some still skeptical of her capabilities, while others were beginning to see the value she brought to the table. A tall man with a sharp suit and a skeptical expression leaned forward, arms crossed. And you believe that just because you've managed to get a few headlines, you can lead us into the future? We need stability, Grace. Grace met his gaze, her determination unwavering. What we need is transparency and a commitment to mental health. We've lost sight of our values, prioritizing profits over people. I propose that we create an initiative that not only supports our employees, but also showcases our commitment to ethical business practices. She gestured to a chart projected behind her, highlighting statistics on employee wellness and productivity. There's a growing demand for companies to take responsibility for their impact on society, Grace continued, her passion igniting the room. If we can become a leader in this movement, we'll not only protect our bottom line, but also restore the trust that has been shattered. A murmur of conversation rippled through the room. Aiden, who had been quietly observing from the side, felt a swell of pride for his wife. He recognized the strength in her voice, the fire in her eyes, and he knew she was right. This was the direction they needed to take. Grace, I appreciate your enthusiasm, Aiden's partner, a middle-aged woman with silver hair, spoke up. But how do you plan to implement these changes without alienating our existing investors? I'm glad you asked, Grace replied, her confidence growing as she fielded the questions. We can start with a pilot program in our largest department, focusing on mental health resources, workshops, and counseling. I believe that by demonstrating the positive impact on employee satisfaction and productivity, we can attract further investment. The discussion continued, and gradually, Grace noticed a shift in the room. Skepticism was giving way to curiosity, and the initial resistance was softening. By the time the meeting concluded, several partners had expressed their support for her initiatives, and she felt a sense of accomplishment wash over her. Later that evening, Grace and Aiden sat together on the balcony of their penthouse, the city lights twinkling below. Aiden looked at Grace, his eyes filled with admiration. You were incredible in there. I don't know how you do it. Grace smiled, touched by his words. I do it for us, Aiden. For our future. I want to build something meaningful together. She leaned back in her chair, reflecting on the whirlwind of emotions they had both experienced since their wedding day. I know things have been tough, but I believe we can turn this around. Aiden took a deep breath, the weight of his family's actions heavy on his heart. I've been thinking a lot about my role in this company, and I want to propose a new vision. a company that prioritizes transparency, mental health awareness, and ethical practices. I want to lead from a place of integrity, not just as a billionaire, but as someone who cares about the people who make this company what it is." Grace's heart raced at his words. That's exactly what we need. Together, we can make a real difference. We can show the world that it's possible to be successful while also being compassionate. As they sat in comfortable silence, the bond between them felt stronger than ever. The chaos of the past few months had forged a new understanding, a commitment to not only each other but to the legacy they wanted to create. The following week, Grace and Aiden organized a small gathering to share their vision with key employees and supporters. The venue was a stunning rooftop garden adorned with twinkling fairy lights, a stark contrast to the turmoil that had previously surrounded them. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the city, Grace stood at the podium, her heart fluttering with excitement and nerves. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady. "As many of you know, the past few months have been transformative for both Aiden and me. We've faced challenges that tested our strength, but they've also opened our eyes to the importance of mental health and ethical practices in our industry." She scanned the crowd, noticing the nods of agreement from some of the employees who had been with the company for years. "We want to create a culture where everyone feels valued, supported, and heard. A culture that not only fosters innovation but also prioritizes well-being. Together, we can redefine what success looks like." Grace paused, allowing her words to resonate. Aiden stepped forward, his presence commanding yet warm. "I want to take responsibility for the mistakes of the past. My family's actions do not reflect who I want to be as a leader. I am committed to changing the narrative and ensuring that our company stands for something greater than mere profits." His voice carried sincerity, and the crowd responded with quiet applause. As the evening unfolded, Grace and Aiden shared their plans for the future, outlining initiatives that would promote mental health awareness, support employee wellness, and engage with the community. The energy in the room shifted, and by the end of the night, there was a palpable sense of hope and excitement among their colleagues. In the days that followed, Grace and Aiden worked tirelessly to implement their vision. They held workshops, invited mental health professionals to speak, and started a mentorship program for employees seeking guidance. Each step brought them closer to their goal of building a company that reflected their values. As they approached the anniversary of their wedding, Grace felt a surge of emotion. They had weathered storms that would have broken many couples, yet here they were, stronger and more united than ever. In a moment of inspiration, she suggested to Aiden that they renew their vows, not just as a celebration of their love, but as a commitment to their shared vision for the future. "Aiden, let's invite our closest friends and family," she proposed one evening as they were wrapping up a long day of meetings. "Let's celebrate how far we've come and what we're building together." Aiden's eyes lit up at the idea. "That sounds perfect, Grace. We can show everyone that our love is not just about romance, but about partnership and resilience." The day of the vow renewal arrived, and the rooftop was transformed into a breathtaking venue, filled with flowers and candles. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over everything, Grace stood before their loved ones, her heart racing with anticipation. Aiden took her hands in his gaze unwavering. "Grace, from the moment I met you, I knew you were someone special. You have brought light into my life in ways I never thought possible. I promise to stand by your side, to support you, and to build a future filled with love and purpose." Tears brimmed in Grace's eyes as she spoke. "Aiden, you are my rock. Together, we have faced challenges that have tested us, but they have only made our love stronger. I promise to cherish you, to inspire you, and to walk with you on this journey." As they exchanged rings and renewed their vows, the air was thick with emotion. Friends and family surrounded them, witnessing a love that had been forged in fire. The celebration that followed was filled with laughter, stories, and a sense of community that felt like a family. Just as Grace thought the evening couldn't get any better, the doors swung open, and in walked Aiden's estranged mother, her expression a mixture of apprehension and hope. Gasps filled the room, and Grace felt a rush of uncertainty. "Aiden," she said, her voice trembling, "I've come to see if we can find a way back to each other. I want to be part of your life again, Aiden stood frozen for a moment, emotions swirling within him. Grace squeezed his hand, offering silent support as he took a step forward, his heart pounding. "Mom, I'm glad you're here. We have a lot to discuss, but I want you to know that I'm open to healing." The room buzzed with anticipation as the family began to embrace the possibility of reconciliation. Grace watched as Aiden and his mother shared a tentative hug, a moment of connection that had been absent for far too long. With renewed love and purpose, Grace and Aiden stepped into their future, ready to face whatever came their way together. The challenges ahead loomed large, but they knew they had each other, and that was enough.